Real quick, I heard on a podcast that I listened to recently that the star of this film, Rami Windsor, has passed away. She passed away about a week or two ago, and I just wanted to send my thoughts to her family. And I just really wanted to say that I haven't seen a lot of her work, but she's really great in this film. And while the film has its flaws, certainly, I have actually seen this more than any of the other Howling movies, even the first one. So, really sorry to hear that she passed. She was very talented. She seemed like a very sweet woman. And not too soon. Howling 4 stars Rami Windsor as a novelist, and she has been experiencing some really intense visions of this nun and these wolves in fire. And they get so bad that her therapist recommends that she goes away. And she and her husband decide to go rent out this cabin that is in this town. And it turns out this town has a really, really bad secret. Everybody in the town is a werewolf. Now, you might notice that if you're a fan of the original Howling, this follows a lot of the same plot as the original, because this is actually a more faithful adaptation of the book, The Howling. Which is strange because, I don't know, this movie isn't nearly as good as the original Howling. The original Howling is very suspenseful, very well directed, and very scary, and one of the best werewolf movies either. But Howling 4, really, I think with a bigger budget, it could have been probably the best sequel, and maybe is the best sequel for the Howling series. And even though, I mean, it's not really a sequel, it's a remake. So it could end up being the second best film in the Howling series. It's necessarily my favorite to watch or the most fun to watch. The most fun to watch is certainly the Howling 3. It is so bonkers and over the top. I love that movie. It's just absolutely crazy, and I hope to talk about it on my channel one day. And of course, the original is, like I said earlier, it's a masterpiece. And none of the sequels have been able to really touch that. But what this one has going for it is that it feels honest. Like, it feels like there's an honest effort. Like, it's just not another cheesy cash grab sequel. It feels like the director and producers and writer and the actors behind it felt like they gave a shit about the product. And unfortunately, the thing that is felt throughout this film is the film's budget. And to its credit, I had no idea that the film was dubbed until maybe the second or third watching, and I had done some research on it, and I read that the film was dubbed, and now that I know that it is dubbed, I notice it more often. But more often than not, the dubbing is actually really well done, mostly for all the main characters. So we've got the writer, like, she's a novelist in this film, whereas in the original film, she was a TV journalist and dealing with this PTSD thing she had from seeing the face of this serial killer. But this movie deals more with personal stress. Like, she's seen visions, and the visions are never really fully explained. I don't know. I've never read the book, so I don't know if that is more explored in the book or what the main character's occupation in the book even is. But basically, she goes to this town to rest, to get away with her husband, and she hears howls in the night, which her husband, douchey husband, insists is just her imagination playing tricks on her. But she begins to see more and more of this nun during the day. Like, she sees visions of this nun who keeps saying, "Fear is here." And she eventually meets a fan, like somebody that is a fan of her work who seeks her out, and they find out that they have a mutual interest. And this woman who is a fan of her books is actually a former nun, and she knew the nun that the author is seeing in her dreams and in her waking days. so they sort of decide to team up to try to find out what happened to this nun and why she is seeing all these mysterious images of the nun and then possibly this older couple that stayed at this cabin before her. And it's a good mystery. Like, I was honestly really interested. I'll be totally honest, the other times that I've watched this film, I've sort of just had it on the background because it's like, it's another Howling sequel. It's sort of just a thing that I had on in the background, even though I'd seen it many, many times. I'll be totally honest, I never really paid full attention to the mystery in the film because I just was just there to kind of have it in the background while I was either working on something or talking to a friend or whatever. But being out in the middle of the woods doing my own writing and being cut off from any type of social media or contact, I could really just watch the film for what it is. And it's, I mean, you're not going to be surprised when it's revealed that the entire town is a bunch of werewolves and that they're trying to keep it under wraps. I mean, that's not going to surprise you, but there's things about the nun and how she may or may not be related to the other people that the author is seeing in her visions, and basically the breadcrumbs to how they get to the werewolf reveal is interesting enough. And I was really impressed at how well acted all the main actors are. And I will say this, I think that I attributed the douchey husband to the original Howling film because in the original Howling film, he just feels like a cheater who is fed up with his wife. Whereas in the Howling 4, when he cheats on his wife, it feels more like he was hypnotized and sort of mind controlled by the shop owner in the town rather than he was just fed up with his wife and wanted to get away from her. You feel like that once he gets bitten himself and starts to begin his transformation, that it's not his fault. That he has douchey moments in the film, but he's not nearly as bad as the husband in the first film. And again, let's talk about that transformation because this film might very well have my favorite werewolf transformation. It is so bonkers that I am amazed every time I see it. It's one of my favorite parts of the film. Basically, when douche husband transforms for the first time, and I'm assuming that this only happens when a person transforms into a werewolf for the first time because all the other townspeople, when they do their wolf forms, it's almost instant. His skin literally starts to melt off his bones. Like his hair starts falling off and he literally melts down to a screaming skeleton. I'm not exaggerating. If you don't want to watch the film, that's fine. I would recommend it. Even if you aren't familiar with the Howling series, I think if you're into werewolf movies at all, or suspense and mystery films, this is a good one to start out with. But the transformation scene is so bonkers and unique that I love it. I mean, the American Werewolf in London is probably the best werewolf transformation ever as far as special effects. But the Howling 4 has the most creative. Like nobody's ever done this before or since that I know of. And the fact that he just melts into a pile of goo and then slowly emerges as a werewolf is, I don't know who the hell thought of that, but way to stretch the limited budget to the best of its ability. And speaking of the budget, the werewolf effects in this film are not very good. And the werewolves take 3 different forms in this film, and I don't know if it's because of budget that they went with this. I think that's probably why. But as far as the context of the story, it's actually a cool idea that there might be 3 different forms that, well, 4 if you want to count the human form that a werewolf can take. So they've got their human form, then they got a form that is kind of somewhat in between their human form and their werewolf form. They're basically just like really like hairy people with long teeth and long nails. Like they look like a lower budget version of the Lon Chaney werewolf from Wolfman. And then there is their gargantuan transformation, the third transformation, where they're just a big ass werewolf. And then there's the fourth, where they're just a wolf. Like, there are scenes where the werewolves run away and it's clearly just a really big dog, like a really hairy dog. And at first I was like, that's probably the limited of their budget, but within the context of the story, it works to have the werewolves have four different forms, so to speak, and I can't really think of any other werewolf film that has done that. It's usually just the human form and the straight up werewolf form. There's like no different other forms that the werewolf can take, and it's a cool way to make the limited budget, to use it in a creative way, to to have dogs and then the limited makeup and then the giant puppet werewolves, or whatever you want to call them. And if you're one of those people that want to see a lot of werewolves, you're not really going to get that until the last 10 minutes of the movie. A lot of the film suspense comes from like a Jaws like point of view. Like, you see the point of the view of the werewolf as it's chasing its prey, or you'll see like a furry hand come through the window or something like that. And again, I assume it's because of their limited budget, but I think it works in the film's favor because there's a lot of really suspenseful scenes, to the film's credit, where people are getting chased through the woods. And even the original Howling, which clearly had a bigger budget, did that in a lot of scenes where the werewolves weren't really seen until the finale. And I think that works really well. But again, if you're somebody it's like a fan of something like Dog Soldiers, where you saw the werewolves all the time, this isn't really that kind of film. This is a slow mystery thriller. But overall, The Howling 4 is a good cabin in the woods movie. It's a good film. I mean, anytime you feature a writer trying to figure out a mystery in a mysterious town, you've got me hooked. So The Howling 4, have you seen it? What did you think about it? Comment below, let me know. Which is your favorite in the Howling series, not counting the original? Thanks always for watching. Bye.